It's week 5. Bye weeks have started. We've got a lot of troubling position players that we have to talk about. I've got Chris Meaney from FTN Fantasy joining us next on the RotoWire Fantasy Football Podcast. Greetings, everybody. Welcome to the RotoWire Fantasy Football Podcast, brought to you by the good folks from Underdog, from Vivid Seats, and of course, Circa Sportsbook and Casino in Las Vegas. I'm Jeff Erickson. He's Chris Meaney from FTN Fantasy. Chris, welcome to the show. How you doing?
I'm doing great, Jeff. Always a pleasure to chop it up with you. One of my faves in the business. So really do appreciate the time. And yeah, it's week 5 is bye weeks. And
yes,
unfortunately more injuries. Just seems to be somebody every single week, but this is the fun sport that we play. And I appreciate you taking the time here today. This is gonna be fun.
Absolutely. You mentioned the bye weeks. We got Detroit. We got the Chargers. We got Philly. We got Tennessee. Some significant fantasy players, especially Detroit. Tight ends. We lose Laporta and Goddard this week. That's tough. A couple, fantasy relevant quarterbacks there, and Goff and Hurts, obviously, as well. So it really does kind of, starts to put that little added layer of pressure. We've been dealing with underperformance and injuries. Now we have to deal with buys as well, and kind of, open our eyes to some possibilities.
Yeah, we really do. A couple things have been stressing, like don't give up. Even if you're 0-4, 1-3, do not give up. It's a long season. Things change pretty quickly in the NFL. And the other thing is, you may have to play some players you would never imagine playing. Put together my rankings over at FTN Fantasy. I didn't think that I'd be, ranking Wan'Dale Robinson as close as I am to, say, Tyreek Hill,
right?
As we head into week 5. But here we are.
Right. That's exactly right. You also have to think about cutting some players that just to make things work. If you're not starting them this week and you need someone, just finished a radio hit where it was one of those situations there where the host is like, do I cut this guy? Well, if you're not going to use them, maybe, you may have to. It happens all the time. So we'll jump right into it. We'll hit quarterbacks first here. I think the obvious talking point is the Colts situation. Whether Anthony Richardson plays or not, or if it's going to Joe Flacco. Richardson finally showed signs of hope this past week, and then he got hurt. And Joe Flacco kind of activated both Michael Pittman and Josh Downs. What are you doing with the Colts quarterbacks this week?
Yeah, man, last week I had Anthony Richardson ranked at 18 among quarterbacks. This was a guy that I didn't have a lot of shares of. I see the talent. I understand the arm strength and what he did on the ground last year, and albeit the 4-game sample size. He was actually playing pretty good against the Steelers before he went down with an injury. So I may have been wrong about that ranking. I have him a touch higher than I did last week, but he's still around quarterback 15 for me. Yep. He wasn't running as much. And, for Michael Pittman, I didn't feel like that was a rapport that we would see this week. Like just playing to Anthony Richardson's strengths, like his strengths don't really suit up to Michael Pittman's strengths as like short, intermediate type of wide receiver. You can see he's among the leaders in ADOT, but he's, on the other side of accuracy. He's turned the ball over quite a bit. So when you have an ADOT that's like 13, 14 yards, average depth of target, you're not going to hit on a lot of these wide receivers. But the matchup is nice. The Jaguars, I don't want to say they're checked out, but this is a team that hasn't won a football game in roughly 3 months of football dating back to last year.
That's right.
So the spot is good. I have him at quarterback 15. So I have him and Trevor Lawrence kind of side by side ahead of, Deshaun Watson and Caleb Williams, who are both in good spots, behind one of the MVP favorites in Sam Darnold, who leads the NFL in touchdowns and is among the leaders in yards per attempt and completion percentage. But that matchup against the Jets, I think, is really tough. So I think you can get by without Anthony Richardson this week. We'll talk about some other quarterbacks, but I don't think he's a must start. And, if you have him, be patient with him. You drafted him early for a reason. You hope that things turn around. If it wasn't him and it was Joe Flacco, I would feel better about Flacco having a better fantasy day, even though he won't move around in the pocket. He'll just sit back there and throw it a bunch.
You anticipated my next question there, because I was going to say, what if we know Richardson doesn't play? Would you go like, say, Darnold against the Jets or Flacco against the Jags?
I honestly would go Flacco against the Jags. I really would.
Yeah.
Shane Steichen might change his offense around a little bit. Like I compared this today to Cleveland when they lost Nick Chubb, and they lost Deshaun Watson and Joe Flacco was under center. We were used to seeing Kevin Stefanski and the Browns be a run-first offense, and then they just changed everything and they were more pass-happy. And I think that could be the case. We know Jonathan Taylor most likely is out. I don't think they'll get a whole lot from Trey Sermon there. Shane Steichen may have to change his offense a little bit, and it would become more pass happy. Teams have thrown on Jacksonville, so I'd feel better about Pittman. I'd feel better about Josh Downs. And I would play him over Sam Darnold. It would be a very similar ranking for me as Anthony Richardson, but I think, like I said earlier, more of a ceiling given that he's going to throw the football. He's not going to run as much as Anthony Richardson, but he would pass. So I probably wouldn't go as far as playing him over Dak against the Steelers, but he's a top 15. He would be a top 15 quarterback.
All right. Very good. Let's talk about Patrick Mahomes. It's heretical, but I've got Mahomes at 11 this week. No Rashee Rice, no Hollywood Brown, no Isaiah Pacheco. I've a reasonably difficult matchup against the Saints. Granted, it's standalone game on Monday night at home, but I don't really love his fantasy potential this week.
I'm with you. I have him at 12 or 13.
Yeah.
So right around where you have him as well. And, you can go back and look at last year in fantasy points per game. I think he was quarterback 13, quarterback 14. And you said it. I mean, losing Hollywood is one thing. He hadn't really thrown any passes to Hollywood, but then losing Rashee Rice, who was just well on his way to having, a top 5, top 7 finish at the wide receiver position. So the explosiveness has been gone from that offense for a year and a half. They've had a lot of screen passes. I mentioned ADOT, and Mahomes is at the bottom compared to other quarterbacks. He's not pushing the ball down the field. We saw Travis Kelce finally have a day, but it's a lot of short ADOT stuff, and how quickly things change again. You feel like a Pacheco goes down, that this team would just be, okay, maybe they'll pass the football a little bit more. But now Rice is gone. Maybe they'll run the football a little bit more with Kareem Hunt and Samaje Perine. Maybe Steele gets a couple more touches. So, yeah, I'm with you. I don't love the matchup, and he just hasn't hit his ceiling. 15 fantasy points each week is fine, but other guys are giving 20 plus, 25 plus, and some are hitting in the 30s, and he just hasn't done that in quite some time.
That's right. And Rashee Rice, we don't know if he's done for the season, but he's done for this week. We know that for sure. So, it's like last year, all of a sudden again. It's Justin Watson running routes. Hey, can I interest you in a Mecole Hardman? No, here we are again. Although, don't talk to the Niners about that, but maybe too soon. But anyways, we'll move on because there's one other guy I wanted to talk about, and that's Justin Fields. He's going to get another start this week. He gets to go against the Dallas Cowboys defense that has both Micah Parsons and DeMarcus Lawrence out this week. Lawrence probably going on IR with that foot. Fields had his best fantasy day last week. Granted, they were playing from behind. Script kind of dictated that, but 2 rushing touchdowns, a passing touchdown, and 300 yards passing. Whoo, boy. And now he's got a matchup there that's probably going to dictate a lot of scoring in this Sunday night matchup.
Yeah, it should. I mean, Dallas hasn't been good defensively with those 2 guys healthy. So those are 2 big losses, especially Micah Parsons and what he can do to a quarterback inside the pocket. So I have Justin Fields at 10, just behind Joe Burrow, who also has a tough matchup. Kyler has a tough matchup, San Fran and Baltimore for those 2 quarterbacks. But, Fields has that rushing floor. He's had a couple touchdowns now, back-to-back games. He's found the end zone on the ground, and he does look like he's more comfortable in the pocket. He's got a big play guy in George Pickens, who led the NFL in yards per catch last season. So I like him. Other guys that I've moved up, like Geno Smith, Jordan Love is back. Brock Purdy is a little bit higher than I normally have him against Arizona. But Justin Fields over a Mahomes, over a Dak Prescott. Yeah, I mean, sign me up for that. I'm definitely in. I think the matchup is a little bit easier for Fields as opposed to Dak Prescott playing the Steelers defense.
Yeah, agreed. I've got Fields over Dak this week. I also on one of my leagues, I've got Jayden Daniels versus Dak every week. I have to make that decision. I don't love Jayden Daniels matchup, but man, how can you not play him right now?
it's what they got 23 scoring drives. I think he has 19 incompletions, which is crazy to think about. I mean, unsustainable 81, 82% completion rate, but this team hasn't even really punted the football over the last 3 weeks. Yeah, it's a true test for Daniels this week against Cleveland. I think he has Baltimore the following week. So these next couple of weeks we'll really be able to get a feel on how good this Washington offense is. But I would play Daniels every week, dude, and I would just make Dak available. And he's still going to have good games. He had the garbage time stuff against Baltimore, but he still had good games. I am worried about Dallas overall as a unit, offensively and defensively. I think they need something else besides CeeDee Lamb. I like Ferguson. Cooks went down. He could be lost for a few weeks. But I know you get that question a lot too. I've gotten it over the past couple of weeks. How Jayden Daniels versus Jalen Hurts, Jayden Daniels versus Mahomes versus Lamar. Like those are the questions I'm getting. And I just tell people trade whichever quarterback will get you the most in return and rock one the rest of the way.
I'm trying to do that. It's hard to pull off those
tough.
trades though, man.
So
I'll
tough.
tell you, no one wants to trade for a quarterback. But
I know.
This is reminiscent of Cam Newton in his rookie years, like Drew Brees or Cam Newton. I saw that a lot of times that year because, that's what the thing is. We didn't used to speculate on rookie quarterbacks as a potential starter for us. It was always like QB 18, QB 20. Right. Now we're taking them at like 10 to 12 with Williams and Daniels. And now it's like, but every once in a while you still get these good problems for people that get that little windfall.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little running backs, but first we'll talk a little bit about from our friends at Underdog. We're proud to partner with Underdog Fantasy for the NFL season. Underdog is the easiest place to play fantasy sports. It's also the fastest growing fantasy app in the industry. In addition to their popular best ball contests, Underdog also offers great DFS pick'em games. Pick whether your favorite players will have a higher or lower stat total in this week's game for a chance to win big. You can win up to 1,000 times your money in a single night by picking between 2 and 8 players to build a pick'em entry. I'm going to be fading Kyle Pitts this week in the Thursday night game, so you might want to check out the Underdog projection for Kyle Pitts and go higher because I'm clearly going to be wrong. I'm going to get whipsawed on this one here. Make that the base for your Underdog entry on Thursday night. Sign up with RWNFL to claim your free pick and first-time deposit offer up to $1,000 in bonus cash. Visit UnderdogFantasy.com or find them in the App Store, and don't forget to register with my promo code RWNFL to claim your free pick plus a first-time deposit offer up to $1,000 in bonus cash. Must be 18 or older, 21 plus in Massachusetts and Arizona, and 19 plus in Alabama and Nebraska, and present in a state where Underdog Fantasy operates. Terms apply. Concerned with your play? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit www.ncpgambling.org. In Arizona, call 1-800-NEXT-STEP, 1-800-839-8783, or text NEXT STEP to 53342. In New York, call the 24/7 Hope line at 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY. That's 467-369. Thank you to Underdog for that. I'm with Chris Meaney from FTN Fantasy. Chris, you guys are on SiriusXM Fantasy every day. You've got Mean Streets. Tell everybody where they can hear you.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah, we're on SiriusXM channel 87, just like yourself. From 1 to 3 Monday to Friday. I'm on there every day in a little rotation of Dane Martinez and Jake Seeley. I also join Jake on Tuesdays and Wednesdays for his show, available on iTunes and Spotify, all in Fantasy Tales of the Rank over at FTN Fantasy. And then I have my own show, Mean Streets, on Mondays, Thursdays, and Friday, teeing up, of course, the Monday Night Football game, the Thursday Night Football game, and Friday answering some starter sit questions from people and some picks and some props and some fantasy football advice. But it is a multi-sport show. So, soon here, the month of October is fantastic. You got playoff baseball, NHL around the corner, NBA, college sports. It's all happening, and we cover it all on Mean Street. So free to check out on our YouTube page. We stream on Friday mornings live, but you can listen on iTunes and Spotify, wherever it is that you get your podcasts.
You're like me. You do all fantasy sports. I love all sports, so I like working in all sports. But man, I do every once in a while envy the football only or baseball only people.
Yes.
I had a baseball dynasty league and I've already seen 2 trades go by. I'm like, guys, stop already. Just give me a second here. I mean, let me enjoy the playoffs, first of all. Secondly, I just can't keep up. I got 19 managed football leagues. I know you probably have more. I mean, everybody in the industry does. I'm like, just give me a breath here.
It's tough, man, with the trades. Yeah, you think that there's a break in the baseball, and then you can get into like prepping for the NHL and the NBA in your full swing, into the NFL. But like you, I love it, and it's a good industry to be in.
Yep.
But it can be taxing. Let's be honest, right? Especially if you are playing close to 20 lineups. It takes a couple hours for me to put together some of my bids. You got to be on top of it. Like if I see something on Sunday night, it's like, okay, I know in this league I got to do it now instead of just saving everything for Tuesday night or Wednesday night. But happened the last year so far.
Absolutely. And baseball Sundays. Yeah, definitely the case there.
Right.
All right. Running backs, always a lot of transition, a lot of turnover with injuries and the like. But I want to start off at the top because Bijan Robinson got out carried, out rushed by Tyler Algier. He was dealing with a hamstring injury. He did get cleared today, so he's full go for tomorrow night, I guess. But what's your level of concern if you have Bijan?
There has to be some concern. I didn't think that we would see a whole lot of Tyler Algier this year with the new regime, with Arthur Smith gone. And, I heard from Raheem Morris, you're just going to use Bijan. Then there were some Falcons beat reporters talking about how it was going to be, a 60-40 split and, predicting 16 carries roughly for Bijan and, 12 to 14 for Algier. It's like, wow, that's a lot of running. And I know they ran the football a lot last year. I think if you have Bijan, you're playing him unless you're in some sort of 8-team, 10-team shallow league and say you have Kenneth Walker and you have, Alvin Kamara fell to you and you have those guys and Jordan Mason fell into your lap or something like that. That's really the only way that I would consider sitting Bijan. I have him at 6. I have moved him and Breece Hall away from the 2 and 3 spots where those guys were getting drafted. But I still think, there's some concern with Breece Hall too. Like Braylon Allen is touching the rock and, there's some talk about him getting more goal line work and things like that. So it's tough out there for running backs. Short week. It's nice that he's practicing in full. So I think he goes back to, getting like 75% of the touches, but it does seem like Algier is going to be a thing, whether that's, 6-7 carries a game, catch or 2. It bothers me when I see Algier used in the red zone near the goal line. And that's something we saw last year. Like Cordero Patterson had more goal line rushing attempts last year than Bijan Robinson, which just blew my mind. So, I'd like to see a little bit more Bijan, but I have no issues rolling him out this week.
And the thing is, like, Algier is actually pretty good. So it's hard to get angry too much. This isn't like the corpse of Frank Gore taking away carries from younger players or anything like that. No offense to Gore. Well, it was kind of offense to Gore, but it was a poor example maybe of the phrasing, but you know what I'm saying? Like someone that clearly doesn't have a whole lot left that's taken away. No, Algier is good. So I get it. Breece Hall, you mentioned it though. It's not like Hall's this like out the pasture guy. He's still young. He was guy we're drafting sometimes as the QB, as the RB1s. Once we saw McCaffrey hurt a little bit there, 10 carries for 4 yards last week. What a nightmare game.
Oh, just a disaster. And I know that the weather was sloppy, and Dane likes to remind me that it was a sloppy weather game in the New York area. I don't want to be too hard on Aaron Rodgers and the Jets offense, jokes aside, but it was not good for anybody at all. And it shouldn't have been that bad. And, the secondary in Denver is really good. I'm not surprised that Rodgers struggled, but it shouldn't be 10 for 4. He started off really slow last year as well. And of course he was coming off the knee injury and it took a little bit of time for him to get going, but his value was really through the air. Like he had a couple nice runs towards the end of the season. But if you look at just the game log, it was a lot of like 2.9, 3.2, 3.4 yards per carry. It's kind of what we're seeing here so far with him. But on the flip side, he's got 18 catches. So, he's going to do enough, I think, through the air in, what should be a fun game in London against the Vikings. So, yeah, he's down a little bit in the rankings. I don't think Braylon Allen's just there in terms of standalone value. We'll see. There's some injuries and 4 teams on bye, but he is creeping up there in terms of flex play.
Yeah, he's a good back. He's good.
He's a very good back.
Yeah, and that's the thing, and he's a big back too. So that's the thing that is scary for us is like, do we lose our goal line carries with Breece Hall? That is problematic for sure. Bengals backs. We saw both of them be productive against Carolina, but a lot of people have been waiting for Chase Brown to be ascendant, and this past week is their moment. He got 2 touchdowns. He outproduced Moss. Had a lot of touches on the ball. Tough home matchup against the Ravens this week. What are you doing with the Bengals running backs?
Yeah, I don't love either of them this week, but I may be alone in this thinking. I have been Team Moss all off season.
Mm-hmm.
I understand that Chase Brown looks better. He's more explosive. He's had more explosive runs. But I've just been in the camp of like, hey, Moss is the veteran. Moss is the early down running back, and Chase Brown will be the change of pace, third down back, and we'll see what he can do in pass protection situations. But it's been pretty surprising to me that Moss has been catching a lot of passes out of the backfield, and it hasn't necessarily been Chase Brown. And up until last week, it was Moss who was getting a majority of the goal line work, the red zone touches. But last week, we saw Chase Brown get a couple of those opportunities. So I think that it's going to be, I think it's going to be a split all year long. I think it's going to be like last year when you watch Pittsburgh play and you're like, man, Jaylen Warren looks so much better than Najee. Why can't we get a little bit more Jaylen Warren between the tackles? And it was just like, Najee's going to be the lead. He's going to get a majority of the red zone work, and he's going to be more valuable that way. Because when I watch the two players, I do see Chase Brown like looking better and deserving more touches and more runs. So the change in guard could be happening. I have Moss still ranked ahead of Chase Brown for this week, because of what he's doing through the air. If it was like Chase Brown cutting in on the ground and the third down work, then I would flip them. But they're both Chase is kind of in the late 20s, high 30s, and Zach Moss for me is in the mid 20s.
Yeah, and I think Moss gets a little bit of benefit on pass pro. I think that's one of the things that we always overlook a little bit there. And I think that's why he earns a few more opportunities, because he just happens to be on the field in the right times there. Jonathan Taylor did not practice today. He has a mild high ankle sprain, which seems like slightly pregnant to me. I mean, it's just either you have a high ankle sprain or you don't. I hate that. I hate that there. It seems like we saw it with Christian Watson. We saw it with Justin Herbert this year. They're trying to diminish high ankle sprains. And I just think high ankle is such a bad injury to have.
It is. And there was some talk about not putting him on IR, but debating it, considering it. So if you're considering it, you got to think it's a couple weeks, right? You wouldn't think about possibly putting him on IR, which does sound like he's going to avoid that. But I know he felt good after the game. I'm with you as well. Like, what is this mild high ankle sprain that we're hearing across the NFL? I'm not super excited about Trey Sermon if it is his backfield. I have him as RB 27. I think it could be a lot like Cam Akers over the past couple of weeks with no Joe Mixon. You hope that he finds the end zone, he scores a touchdown. If it is Flacco, I think they're chucking more. And if it is Anthony Richardson, he's more willing to run in if they get close near the goal line. So I actually have him, even though I'm a little sour on Rachaad White, I have him behind Rachaad White and Bucky Irving on Thursday Night Football, behind Javonte Williams. We just talked about Moss. I'm a little sour on Devonta Chan, but I'd still roll out Devonta Chan. So it's all context dependent. Of course, if you had Jonathan Taylor, you may need the next man up. He should be a guy that gets 15 plus opportunities, which is nothing to kind of like scoff at. So flex play.
Yeah. And it's just, we haven't seen like a game this year where like, okay, Taylor's definitely out. How are they going to split it between Sermon and Goodson?
Right.
I don't think we can necessarily assume you're going to get, okay, Sermon's going to get 20 touches and Goodson's going to be just a nothing backup. No, maybe Goodson will be in there. I just don't think we know that for sure. So
Sermon could struggle.
Yeah.
He struggled before in the past, so he could struggle and Steichen could go the other way.
Absolutely. Going to talk wide receivers next with my guest, Chris Meaney from FTN Fantasy. But first, quick note from our friends at Vivid Seats. NFL football is back. Gear up for the gridiron and with Vivid Seats and score tickets to the biggest games of the year. Every touchdown, every tackle, and every eye-popping play of your favorite team, live and in person. And with Vivid Seats rewards, you earn perks with every single purchase. Each ticket you buy gets you closer to your reward. Just buy 10 tickets and simply cash in your credit towards your 11th ticket purchase. It's that easy. Plus, Vivid Seats is offering you $20 off your first $200 ticket purchase with code RotoWire. That's code RotoWire, ROTOWIRE. From the upper deck to the front row, Vivid Seats has great tickets for all the 2024 games that matter to you. Just visit vividseats.com and download the app today. Vivid Seats. Experience it live. here with Chris Meaney. We are talking all things about this upcoming week for week 5. We've talked quarterbacks and running backs so far. Moving on to the wide receiver position. Got news here. We'll start off with is Malik Nabers. He's been, they played on Thursday night. He did not practice today, coming back from the concussion protocol. Usually like, oh, he's got 10 days, might come back. But as we know, concussions, they're hard to pin down.
Yeah, they are. And the early stages, I'm not really sure what that actually means and how close he is to returning. You got to think that I thought with the game being on Thursday night last week that he had a possibility, a chance to suit up for this week. If it was an injury, concussion sustained last Sunday, you wouldn't imagine that he would be ready to go this week. So he's been lighting the world on fire. Obviously, he's been fantastic. If he's healthy and active, you're certainly playing him. I got him at wide receiver 3. But I will give some love to Wan'Dale Robinson regardless. Sitting here at wide receiver 34, kind of, tongue in cheek with you about him versus Tyreek Hill. But, if you just look overall at the numbers, you see 26 catches, which ranks 5th at the wide receiver position. You have 38 targets, which ranks 4th at the wide receiver position. Daniel Jones is throwing the football to 2 guys, essentially, in Nabers and Wan'Dale Robinson. One guy in Nabers has an extremely high ceiling, and one guy in Robinson has a solid floor. We don't really see the ceiling with him. If you're in a PPR league, you're getting double-digit fantasy points. Even in a half-point setting, you're getting close to that. And he has 4+ catches in 8 of his last 10 games dating back to last season. So it's not something that's just happening this year. I know Devin Singletary didn't practice today too. I think that Seattle should be able to score some points. I don't think that Geno's going to chuck the football 55 times, but he's first in pass attempts. He's first in yards. He's got 3 unbelievable weapons. Ryan Grubb looks like a heck of a play caller. So Seattle's going to put up some points against the Giants. Daniel Jones is going to have to throw the football here. So if there's no Nabers, I don't know if I'm really getting involved with Darius Slayton. But the one thing about no Nabers is you're going to get, certainly a lot of attention from the defenders on Wan'Dale Robinson, but
yeah,
I think he makes for a decent wide receiver 3 or at least a flex play. And if you're in a PPR league, you feel even better about his outlook, especially with those teams on bye and some of the injuries.
Yeah. My only complaint about Wan'Dale Robinson is if it's 3rd and 7, he's going to get you 5 or 6. It's just every pass short of the sticks. I mean, it's not him. It's fault. It's Danny Jones, but
right.
Yeah, it's just frustrating. A question from one of the listeners in the audience, Billy Biceps asks, would you trade Wan'Dale Robinson and Breece Hall, who we spoke of earlier, for Josh Jacobs and Tyreek Hill?
It does depend on your context here. So I would say if I was 4-0, the only way I would be trying to acquire Tyreek Hill is if I really was 4-0 or 3-1, and acquiring him, hoping that Tua would be back. According to reports, there's a real possibility that Tua will return again this season, week 8, week 9. You hope that he's healthy and he doesn't take a shot. But Wan'Dale Robinson, the ceiling isn't super high. So getting a guy like Jacobs, who I like, and we've seen a little bit of Emmanuel Wilson lately, but I think that's just given the play without Jordan Love in the previous couple weeks. I really like Josh Jacobs as a buy low. He hasn't been scoring any touchdowns, and I don't even think he has a receiving touchdown in his NFL career, but he's got a few rushing touchdowns. And I like the side of Jacobs and Hill, but one thing I'll say is, again, just if you are struggling and you're not off to a really good start, it is very, very tough to acquire Tyreek Hill, and it is very tough to start him. Trust me, I know. I'm playing him, hoping that he hits the ceiling and the upsides there, but it is not good in Miami right now.
Yeah, I haven't got to the point of benching Tyreek Hill. I have him in one league at least, but excuse me. It just makes me cough. Just want to talk about Tyreek Hill there. So
I took Tyreek early in Jake's league in the flex, and
we're in that together, right?
Yeah, it stinks. I don't have enough depth. I went wide receiver early. I don't know. My other guy's Davante Adams was my second wide receiver, so I'm in a tough
next
spot
on my
there.
list, by the way. So
yeah, what do you do with that guy?
Yeah, rough times. Hey, I got Trey Sermon in that league. Yay!
There you go.
Yeah, there's much rejoicing for $11. I also got Tank Bigsby. I have plenty of spots. I have so many dead guys in that league, but that in the host league I have that issue with as well. So yeah, plenty of fun stuff to talk about there. Davante Adams, though, not so fun if you have him, because not only is he theoretically dealing with a hamstring, and now it makes me question that injury, but he was asked for the trade. we're not anywhere close to the trade deadline. There is no urgency for the Raiders to get a deal done here.
None at all. The only urgency would be just to remove a guy that doesn't want to be there, as Antonio Pierce tries to, rebuild I don't know, everything in Las Vegas, right? Like it's been rough there for years. Build the culture up, and Adams doesn't want to be there. I could see Pierce saying, okay, like let's just move on from him right away. But they're not just gonna cater to him. Like he can say he wants to go play with his old buddy Aaron Rodgers or his Fresno State quarterback Derek Carr all he wants, but if the offer is a low ball offer, then they're not just going to ship him there just for the sake of it. And the way I have Adams in a lot of spots, and I want him gone. I want him traded. Like even New England, like he wouldn't be happy in New England clearly, but that wouldn't be a good situation. But at least he would be playing. I think he would play anyways if he was traded to New England. I don't imagine him playing until he's traded. Because if he does have a hamstring injury, the risk of re-hurting that injury does halt the trade. And if he doesn't want to be there. He's checked out. So why would they play him? So it's tough. If you're an Adams owner, you hope that he's just traded very, very soon. And again, I'll just go back to the 4-0 teams. It's a risk to acquire him. You don't even know where he's going to end up. But you could get him right now from an owner who's really near the basement in your standings.
Yeah, absolutely. 100% you could do that there. What are you doing with Jakobi Meyers this week? I mean, tons of targets available there. He got 10 last week, but he gets Patrick Surtain this week. We've seen what Denver's done to pretty much everybody so far, passing wise. I think I've got him at 29, but I don't have a whole lot of confidence in my ranking.
Yeah, you have him a little bit higher than me. I'd be more willing to roll out, either one of the Colts wide receivers if Flacco was there under center, Wan'Dale Robinson, Darnell Mooney on the Thursday Night Football game, Donatavian Wicks, Romeo Doubs. I like him moving forward. I think that he should be rostered, and because of this whole Davante Adams thing, like he's had a lot of targets lately. It seems like maybe it's just him and Bowers, but it's what you said about Surtain. I'm really concerned. He has shut down some big time wide receivers. DK Metcalf in week 1 had a quiet week. We've seen a couple big time wide receivers just where are they? Right. I mean, even Wilson, Garrett Wilson last week. So
Evans.
Evans. Exactly. Yeah. Secondary is good. I wouldn't be shocked if Trey Tucker had a better day. I know that seems like a riskier play over a veteran like Jakobi Meyers, but he won't see Surtain and they can move him around a little bit. So I'm a little hesitant. I think he should be owned. I think he should be rostered. And I just think that Jeff, next week, we're just talking about him a little bit differently.
Yeah, I agree with that take. And I also think that Trey Tucker is a pretty sneaky pickup this week. If you've got bye week issues, he might be someone. I go Wicks first, clearly. I go Wan'Dale before him too. But Tucker's right there with say Xavier Leggett. Because I think he's got a tough matchup in his own right this week. He's probably there with who else I was thinking? The Rams receivers, like Jordan Whittington's interesting. But I might go Tucker this week because of that dynamic.
Yeah, Whittington is very interesting. I picked him up a couple weeks ago, and I thought he played the Cooper Kupp role. And then that first game, it was a dud game. Yeah, and then unfortunately, I wasn't able to hold on to him in a couple spots. And then last week, we saw what I was kind of expecting. Not a high ceiling, kind of like Wan'Dale, but in the slot, playing that Cooper Kupp role for McVay and Stafford. And we certainly saw that last week and in the middle of the field. And he should avoid the top corners. Like Jair Alexander should be on Demarcus Robinson. And the Rams they've coughed it up all year to running backs, to quarterbacks, to wide receivers. And I really like where Jordan Love is at in this spot. He's a top 5 quarterback for me. I think Jayden Reed's a top 10 wide receiver, and Dontavian Wicks is a top 30 guy for me. And I think Romeo Doubs is going to be forgotten about, and I think he could be played as a flex play. So I think the pace will have to be pushed on the other side, which does make me a little bit I'm not crazy, but I got Whittington at 41. I like talking him up like I have him as a rock solid play. But I think, he may have a better day than Jakobi Meyers, is a guy that may just catch 6 balls for like 60 yards in a PPR format. It's not bad.
Yeah, the Green Bay Rams game could be sneaky. It's going to be like the mirror image, the opposite image of the game they played against each other last year, which set football back a little bit. But Jair Alexander missed last week. He may not even play this week, which would make things even better for Whittington. But I like Wicks, even though he does have some hands issues. I like Jayden Reed a lot. I even think Dubs is pretty sneaky good this week too.
Yeah, I think Dubs is the guy who, I'm just looking on Alexander. You're spot on. They don't believe it's a long term, but he may not be good to go this week.
Yeah.
Romeo Dubs I wish I had more Jayden Reed. I thought he was going to touch early. I wasn't buying Watson. I see the talent, but it's just unfortunately for him, he just wasn't able to stay on the field. So I have a lot of Dubs and I had a lot of Wicks. Wicks was hard to hold on to, but Dubs was that guy for me that I felt like was just getting disrespected in the fantasy community as a guy who he's always on the field. And last year he was first in target share and air yard share, in end zone targets and red zone targets. He had 8 receiving touchdowns like Jayden Reed. Like, he was involved in the offense. He didn't have the same type of a ceiling and after the catch explosiveness like Jayden Reed, but he's very much involved. So he's the guy I was looking today. Like, what's the ownership like? Is he one of the most dropped wide receivers after Wicks was one of the most picked up? And it's like, he's not, because nobody even owns him. His ownership is still like sub 50% in certain formats and certain leagues. So don't forget about him. I know all the buzz is around Reed and Wicks, but this offense is going to be good in Green Bay. And I think Romeo Dubs is a guy that you can play as a flex spot this week.
Yeah. By the way, Jordan Love popped back up on the injury list today too. I think he's fine. He was limited in practice day. I think that's what's going to be the case. He came back ahead of schedule, right? So it kind of makes sense that maybe he'll be, limited for a while in practice, especially on Wednesdays. I try not to freak out about Wednesday news unless like an injury happens in practice.
Yeah, good call.
Yeah, so
those are the tough ones, right? AJ Brown, which we saw in practice and still haven't seen him yet.
George Kittle also, when that happened with him. So it's not just
Evan Ingram was another one, or that was pregame. It was minutes before the game.
Yep.
Thanks. That's a tough one.
That was a fun scramble. I was actually on my annual golf trip and at a golf course in Alabama on the Robert Trent Jones Golf Trail there, and like, oh my God, I gotta do this. What league? Okay. Use the My Leagues tool on RotoWire. Okay, this is where I have Kittle. Okay, breathe. Okay,
nice.
Put guys in. All that kind of good stuff. But still, it's like, oh yeah, it's a real hassle dealing with all of that there. Tight ends have been a real hassle. We're going to talk about them next. But first, quick note from our good friends at Circa. We love Circa, by the way. We go there every year now for RotoWire for our summer trip, and then we go for Radio Row as well. It's football season, and the best place to catch games is at Circa Resort Casino in downtown Las Vegas, featuring the best pool in history, Stadium Swim. 3 levels, 6 pools, and 143-foot diagonal screen. Easy for me to say. Whether it's Thursday, Saturday, Sunday, or Monday, Stadium Swim is America's favorite place to watch football. No matter the size of your group, Stadium Swim is the place for you. From owner suites to cabanas, day beds to stadium booths, there are seating choices for everyone. And the best part, Stadium Swim is open 365 days a year with the temperature-controlled pools. It's a great place to catch the games all season long. Stadium Swim, located at Circa Resort and Casino in downtown Las Vegas. Book today at circalasvegas.com. The sports book there is crazy. They have TVs over the bars everywhere. I mean, it is very sports-friendly. Fantasy friendly.
It's the best. I think it's the best place on earth. If you're a sports fan, are you kidding me? The way that they have everything set up with all the screens by the pool. Yeah, I'm a big fan.
It's fan. Nuts. It's just really nuts there. Tight end has been, as everybody knows, especially, but if from almost every single player has been frustrating at the position. The 2 biggest problem children, though, however, have to be Kyle Pitts and Mark Andrews. What do you do? With these guys? I've gotten to the point where I'm going to bench Kyle Pitts this week, and it's just, I know it's going to come back to haunt me, and I'm still going to do it. But I've got him at like 14 or 15 this week, and Mark Andrews right behind him. I don't really have a whole lot of Mark Andrews, fortunately, but just answering questions about him all season long, it's exhausting.
Yeah, I really feel bad for the Andrews owners. I have 0 shares, and I'm thrilled about that. But I just didn't expect this. Like, I just didn't want to draft Mark Andrews where he was going. I
Mhm.
was more willing to wait out. I have a fair share of Kyle Pitts, and I got a little bit of Ingram. I'm in the call, Kincaid, and most of the shares I have Ferguson. I really like his outlook. Andrews, I just wouldn't hold anymore. I've seen enough now, and
Great
it
drop, huh? Wow.
yeah, it's crazy. Back to back weeks. Like it really is. And if you can, the thing is about holding him, you can hold him all you want. And it's just, when are you going to play him? When he has the good game, it's like, okay, he had the good game. Now I'll play him next week. I'm just seeing a team that wants to run the football
Mhm.
with Derrick Henry. They ran the football more than anyone last year. They're doing that again. They're using Justice Hill, who's second on the team in catches. Like Zay
Right.
Flowers has back-to-back weeks with one grab. So how can I trust Andrews when their wide receiver one isn't really getting the volume that you would expect from a wide receiver one? Likely is out there more than him. At least that was the case against Dallas when they just crushed the Cowboys and they didn't need Andrews on the field. Then last week they crushed the Bills, but I see Likely on the field just as much, blocking like Andrews, at least catching the target or two gets thrown his way. I have Andrews at tight end 19. I have Likely at tight end 18. I have Pitts at tight end 13. I'd play Kate Otten over him. I'd
Me
play
too.
Tucker Kraft over him.
Me too.
Evan Ingram comes back. I'm playing Evan Ingram. I'm just assuming that he's good to go. I know he's not practicing in full, but him and David Njoku are guys that I would play at this point, even their first game from a lengthy absence over Mark Andrews. It's really tough. Look, if you know this, everyone even listening, if the back of the name was, I don't know, anything else, he'd be ranked tight end 54. Like if
Yeah.
you're watching the Ravens, he's not involved at
Yeah.
all. I don't know how it changes. Like maybe when they get into a competitive game, is this it? Can the Bengals push the pace? Is this going to be a back and forth shootout type game? And maybe Andrews is more involved. I don't know. Like when they're big favorites, I can't imagine he's going to get a lot of work.
Yeah, and I think that's right. I think it's like I'm kind of curious to see what happens. Like, say if some team gets a good lead on them, and then all of a sudden they have to throw the ball more. That would be the thing that kind of is intriguing to me. I have Pitts at 15 and Andrews at 16. I do have Likely below Andrews, but I could be persuaded that I'm wrong about that one there. I too would start Ertz, Kraft, Otten, Henry above these guys. I'm not starting, and I have Kyle Pitts in like 7 leagues. I have so much Kyle Pitts too, and I was trying to find guys to pick up to replace him because I just, Raheem Morris's comments when being asked about Pitts, he's like, stats are for losers. That's not what I want to hear.
Call me a loser then, because
Yeah,
I'm a big stats guy and I love the numbers and I have some Pitts too. And I think moving forward, like Kelsey without Rashee Rice, McBride, Kittle, Ferguson, Bowers, Kincaid, you hope Ingram. After that, it really is just about trying to find a touchdown to be relevant. Like Pat Fryermuth's getting some targets, Ertz getting some targets. They're certainly involved in their offense. I got a soft spot for K-Dot, and I could be wrong about him, but it's back-to-back weeks now where he's shown up. So and Baker's playing really good football. So yeah, there are some other options I would rather go to, but you know how it works, man. You bench Kyle Pitts and boom, he has a touchdown and a couple catches. He's very much involved, and we're talking about all his stats with Raheem Morris. Then we put him into our lineup, and then the next week he's not really involved. When I watch Atlanta, I thought heading into the season it would be like Drake London 1A, Kyle Pitts 1B. The target share may be very similar. London would have a higher ceiling, but I did not expect to see Ray McLeod as involved as he is, Zacchaeus as involved as he is, and Darnell Mooney is very much a part of this offense, as I would say the number 2 behind London. So it's really tough, man. I think people may have something in Kraft. And I think Otten's somebody to keep an eye on.
Those are the 2 guys I was targeting all week. I assumed Fryermuth taken in any league. If Fryermuth's available, he's in my top 10. He's like my tight end 6 right now. We'll see what happens with Ingram. But but it also just shows what we're doing at tight end right now. I mean, Ingram's missed so much time. The only tight ends I'm like, I'm happy to have them and start them this week are Kelsey, Kittle, and Ferguson. After that, I'm just like, Bowers even. Like,
I know. With the quarterback play, it's just, the first couple of weeks, so many targets. It's like, oh, great. Like this guy may set records. But then, they can't run the ball. They're not getting any first downs with any of their running backs.
Yeah.
Zamir White's putting it on the ground. And then now you got the Adams issue. So, yeah, it's tough. I'll say TJ Hawkinson. I saw that he's going to practice on Friday, potentially return week 7, I do believe, after the Vikings are on bye next week. So even him, it's not going to be the same as what it was with Kirk Cousins. There may be some highs and some lows, but I think that he could creep them up into the top 10. I think we'll be talking about him as a top 10 tight end when he's healthy.
Yeah. And the thing is, with him, with Andrews, coming back from a major injury, you just don't know what's going to happen.
Good point. It's a really good point. We
don't, Mark Andrews, he had that car accident, and the Ravens were more, really short on details about that, but he didn't practice for a couple of weeks. That might still be an issue. I don't even know what's going on.
We know he's good though, right? He is good. He's a mismatch.
Did he?
What happened? It's just, it can't be just zeros and not even getting any targets. So it's pretty odd to see, if you are willing to hang on, good for you. If you're in a good spot, just continue to hang on to him. But if you're just desperate for W's, I think you just have to get somebody who's getting some targets.
Absolutely. I thought you brought up some good points too. It's bye week season. It's start to think long-term here season, where if you're 4-0 or if you're 0-4, you just have to kind of tailor your strategy accordingly. Don't give up if you're 0-4 or 1-3, because we've seen fantasy comebacks more so than in the NFL, where the deck is kind of stacked against you maybe a little bit more. But I think that there are some strategies you can do when you're trying to make trying to catch up, or you're trying to plan for the future.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think one of those things is planning ahead. Already for me, I'm looking who's on bye week 6. Oh, I have Patrick Mahomes. I need a replacement quarterback. I want to get my replacement quarterback if I can before waivers run. I want to be first crack at, and this is a week, I think, with buys and teams at 0-4 or 1-3, where there's some panic drops. I saw Calvin Ridley was one of the most dropped wide receivers in ESPN leagues. Ladd McConkey may be dropped. Maybe you can go buy low on Jalen Hurts. Maybe the Jalen Hurts owner is 1-3. They need a quarterback right now. There is an opportunity to buy low and sell high at this point of the season and take advantage really of your league mates. It's just, I have some teams that are 0-4 that I think are better than teams that are 4-0. So it's just fantasy and you take it week to week, but don't give up. You just got to get to the dance. That's what I say all the time. Get to the dance. You just never know.
Yep. Absolutely. It's just need that ticket to the tournament there, and good things happen after that. Chris, awesome stuff. Really enjoyed doing the show with you as always. Thanks for spending some of your time with us today.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thanks, Jeff. Let's do this again sometime soon.
Absolutely. He's Chris Meaney, everybody. He's at FTN Fantasy. He's on Sirius XM Fantasy Channel 87. And of course, Mean Streets, which you can get wherever you get your podcasts, or you want to stream on YouTube. Check that out, folks. Big thanks to everybody tuning in today. If you like this, please hit that like button, hit subscribe. Helps us all out, and it notifies you when the next one's coming. And if you want to check out RotoWire, go to rotowire.com/pod for that free trial. No credit card required. Thanks, everybody, for listening. Take care.